Rain hammered the windshield. My car died on an empty road. No signal. No houses. Just darkness pressing against the glass. Headlights appeared behind me, slow and steady. Then stopped. A woman stepped out. Hood up. Hand extended toward me. Get in, she said. You'll freeze out here. I almost said no. Something in her eyes made me trust her. I didn't know that ride would unravel everything I believed about myself. By spring, I would either lose my family or lose her. My name is Maya Whitfield, 28. A high school art teacher in Millbrook, Ohio. I'd spent my whole life following rules I never questioned, until that night on Route 9. Her name was Jordan Reyes. She drove a battered pickup and smelled like pine and rain. Where to? She asked, glancing at my soaked clothes with quiet concern. No judgment in her voice. I gave directions in a shaky voice. Embarrassed. Grateful. Unable to stop staring at her profile. She didn't fill the silence with small talk. She let it sit. Comfortable. Unhurried. Oddly calming. And my driveway. She handed me a card. Reyes Auto Repair. Call tomorrow about your car. I laughed nervously. Thank you for stopping. Most people wouldn't have. She shrugged. Most people should. That night I couldn't sleep. Replaying her voice. Her hand steady on the wheel. Her stillness. The next morning I called the number, telling myself it was only about the car. She picked me up herself. Work boots and grease-stained jeans. Hair tied back loosely. You're the art teacher, she said. I've seen your students' murals downtown. They're good. I flushed. Surprised she'd noticed my work in a town where I usually felt invisible. We talked the whole ride to the shop. Easier than I'd talked to anyone in years. Over the following weeks, my car needed just one more part. An excuse we both understood. We started meeting at Ruthie's Diner on Tuesdays. Coffee turning into 2 hours without either noticing. Jordan had grown up in Millbrook too. Left for the army. Came back to run her father's garage. She spoke carefully about her past. Like someone used to guarding pieces of herself. I found myself dressing differently on Tuesdays. Choosing colors I thought she might like. My best friend Renee teased me. You talk about the mechanic more than your last boyfriend. I brushed it off. Though something in my chest tightened every time her name came up. One evening Jordan showed me the trail behind her father's land. An old orchard gone wild. I come here when the shop gets loud in my head, she said. Quieter than usual. We sat on a fallen tree, watching the sun drop behind the hills in orange silence. Can I ask you something personal? She said. I nodded. Heart suddenly loud in my ears. Why aren't you seeing anyone? Guy like you deserve. This town's full of them. I laughed too fast. I don't know, I said. Which wasn't the truth. Just the only answer I had ready. She looked at me a moment longer than necessary, then looked away toward the darkening orchard. Driving home that night, I realized I hadn't thought about a man in weeks. Only her. I told myself it was friendship. The way I told myself many things I didn't examine. The school. I caught myself sketching orchard branches instead of lesson plans. Her voice in my head. Renee noticed the change first. You're glowing. Maya, what aren't you telling me? Nothing, I said too quickly. And she raised an eyebrow but let it go. For now. Jordan started leaving small things at my door. Apples from the orchard. A fixed radio knob. Notes. One note read, saw this and thought of you, beside a pressed leaf shaped like a heart. I kept it in my desk drawer, taking it out more often than I wanted to admit. At the county fair, we rode the Ferris wheel together. Her shoulder warm against mine at the top. I'm glad you got a flat tire that night, she said, half joking. Eyes steady on the horizon. Me too, I whispered. And something passed between us that neither of us named out loud. Walking back to the trucks. Her hand brushed mine. and neither of us pulled away first. We stood by her tailgate a long moment, the fair lights blinking behind her like static. "Maya," she said softly, "I need to tell you something before this goes any further." My heart stalled. "You can tell me anything," I said, though I wasn't sure that was true. "I like women. I have for a long time. I think you already know that." I nodded slowly, throat tight, because some quiet part of me had known since Route 9. "And I think," she continued carefully, "you might feel something too. Tell me if I'm wrong." I didn't answer with words. I stepped closer, and she waited, letting me choose the distance. When I kissed her, it felt less like a beginning and more like something finally arriving. We stood there under the fairground lights, foreheads touching, both of us shaking a little. "I've never done this," I admitted. "Felt this. For a woman." Out loud. "I mean, we don't have to rush anything," Jordan said. "I just needed you to know the truth." Driving home that night, I cried not from fear, but from the relief of finally being honest. For 2 weeks we kept it quiet, meeting at the orchard where no one could see us. I told myself it was practical, not shame, though the difference felt thinner every day. My mother called on Sunday, asking when I'd bring home a nice young man for dinner. I laughed it off, the way I always had, and hated myself a little afterward. Renee finally cornered me at lunch. "It's Jordan, isn't it? The way you say her name." I froze, coffee cup halfway to my mouth, unable to lie to the one person who'd notice. "Yes," I said finally. "It's Jordan." Renee exhaled, relieved. "Okay. Does she make you happy?" "More than anyone ever has," I admitted, and for a moment it felt safe to say it. But Millbrook was small, and small towns carried whispers the way rivers carried leaves downstream. Someone saw Jordan's truck at my apartment 3 nights running and mentioned it at church. By Wednesday, my mother called again, voice tight. "People are saying things. Maya, is it true?" I sat frozen on my kitchen floor, phone pressed to my ear, unable to form the word. "It's not true," I lied, and my mother's relieved sigh cut deeper than anger would have. That night I told Jordan what happened. She went quiet, jaw tight, hurt hiding behind calm. "You denied it," she said, not angry, just flat, like something inside her had closed. I panicked, I said. "My mother. My job. The school board. Everything I have is here." "I know," Jordan said softly. "I'm not asking you to choose. I just need you to be honest with yourself." She left before I could answer, and I sat alone with the silence I'd created. The school. The principal called me into his office the following Monday. Expression carefully neutral. "Parents have raised concerns," he said, "about your personal life influencing the classroom." My stomach dropped. "My personal life isn't a lesson plan," I said, voice steadier than I felt inside. "I'm not accusing you of anything," he said. "I'm telling you what I'm hearing. Be careful." I walked out shaking, humiliated by a conversation built entirely on rumor and fear. Jordan and I didn't speak for 4 days, the longest silence since the night on Route 9. Renee showed up at my apartment with wine and no judgment, just quiet company. "You love her," she said. It wasn't a question. I nodded, tears finally breaking loose. "Then stop lying to people who were never going to protect you anyway," Renee said gently. I drove to the orchard that night, headlights cutting through fog like the night we met. Jordan was there, sitting on the fallen tree, like she'd known I'd eventually come back. "I'm scared," I told her honestly, "of losing my mother, my job, the only life I know." "I'm scared too," she said, "but I'm more scared of watching you disappear into a lie." We didn't solve everything that night, but we held each other until the fog lifted. I decided to tell my mother the truth myself, before the town could tell her first. I drove to her house Sunday morning, hands trembling on the wheel the whole way there. "Mom," I said at her kitchen table, "I need to tell you something important about my life." She set down her coffee cup slowly, already bracing, as if she'd known this was coming. "I'm seeing someone," I said. "Her name is Jordan. I love her." The words finally existed. My mother was silent for a long moment, staring at her hands folded on the table. "I don't understand," she finally said. "How long have you known this about yourself?" "I think I've always known," I admitted. "I just didn't have the courage to say it." "Your father would have." She stopped herself, throat tight, unable to finish the sentence. "Dad's been gone 6 years. Mom, I can't keep living for what he might have thought." She stood abruptly and walked to the window, back turned, silence stretching between us painfully. "I need time," she said finally. "This isn't easy for me, Maya. Please understand that." I nodded, throat aching, and left without the resolution I'd hoped for. Only honesty instead. Word spread faster than I expected, the way secrets do in towns built on familiarity. A parent pulled their daughter from my mural class the following week, citing personal concerns. Another teacher, Diane, stopped sitting with me at lunch without explanation, avoiding my eyes entirely. Jordan's business took a hit too. 2 longtime customers quietly switched to the shop in Danville. "I don't regret it," Jordan told me, though I saw the worry she tried to hide. Renee became my anchor, defending me in the teacher's lounge when I wasn't there to hear it. "People will catch up," she told me. "Or they won't. Either way, you're still you." 3 weeks later, the school board scheduled a review of my contract, citing vague community complaints. I sat in a windowless room facing 5 board members, none of them meeting my eyes. "We've had concerns raised about your conduct outside school," the chairwoman said, choosing words carefully. "My conduct outside school is legal, private, and none of this board's business," I said firmly. The room went quiet. I hadn't expected my own voice to sound that steady. "We're not discussing legality," another member said. "We're discussing community trust in this position." "Then discuss my teaching record," I said, "which has nothing to do with who I love." They tabled the decision, promising a follow-up meeting, leaving me in agonizing uncertainty for weeks. That night, Jordan found me sitting in my car outside the school, unable to go home. "I keep thinking I've ruined everything," I told her. "My job, my mother, my whole life." "You didn't ruin anything," she said. "You told the truth. The truth isn't the problem here." "Then why does it feel like I'm losing everyone I love?" asked, voice breaking apart. "Because the people worth keeping haven't shown up yet," she said. "Give them time." 2 days later, my mother appeared at my door, unannounced, holding an old photo album. "I found these," she said. "Photos of your Aunt Carol, from before she moved to Chicago." I stared, confused, until she opened to a photo of 2 women, arms around each other. "Carol loved a woman named Eleanor for 30 years, my mother said quietly. "We never spoke of it." My breath caught. "You knew all this time, and you never told me?" "Your grandfather forbade it," she said. "I watched Carol disappear from our family over silence like this." "I don't want that for you," my mother continued, voice trembling. "I was just afraid." "Afraid of what?" asked, though part of me already understood the answer completely. "Of losing you the way we lost her," she said. "I handled that fear badly. I'm sorry." We sat together for hours, looking through photos of a woman I'd never known existed. It was the first crack of light in weeks, though the darker part of the storm remained. The following Friday, the school board reconvened, and I walked in expecting the worst outcome. Before they could speak, Renee stood in the gallery. I have something to say. If allowed. She read a letter signed by 30 parents supporting my teaching, my character, and my right to privacy. One board member shifted uncomfortably. This isn't a public forum, he said, though he let her finish. The chairwoman studied the letter for a long moment before setting it down deliberately. We'll take this under advisement, she said, and reconvene once more before any final decision. Walking out, Renee squeezed my hand. You're not alone in this town. Whatever they decide. That night, Jordan's father, Hank, called her with unexpected news that shook her completely. A man named the developer wanted to buy the orchard land for a housing project. He's offering triple what it's worth, Jordan told me, voice tight with an old grief. That orchard is the only thing my mother left me before she died, she said quietly. I realized then how much of Jordan's steadiness came from a loss she rarely mentioned. What are you going to do? Asked, and she shook her head, unsure for once. The shop's losing customers. The offer would solve everything financially, but it feels like losing her again. I held her that night, understanding for the first time how much she'd been carrying alone. The next school board meeting arrived faster than I wanted. My future decided by strangers again. After review, the chairwoman began. The board finds no grounds to alter Ms. Whitfield's contract status. Relief flooded through me so suddenly my knees nearly buckled beneath the folding table. However, she added, we strongly encourage discretion regarding personal matters going forward. I nodded, exhausted, grateful. Outside, Jordan was waiting by her truck, having heard the outcome from Renee's quick text. You kept your job, she said, pulling me into a hug that lasted longer than usual. But her own decision about the orchard still hung unresolved, heavier with every passing day. One evening, the developer arrived at the orchard uninvited, walking the land like he already owned it. Jordan confronted him, voice sharp. This land isn't for sale. Not now. Not ever. Everyone has a price, he said, smug. Before driving off in his expensive, indifferent car. That night, Jordan sat under the same tree where we'd first admitted our feelings, silent and drained. I could lose the shop instead, she said. Selling would be the responsible choice. Wouldn't it? Since when do you make choices based on what's easy instead of what matters? I asked. She looked at me, something shifting behind her eyes, like she'd needed permission to fight. You're right, she said. I've been so scared of losing this place. I forgot I could save it. The next morning, Jordan called a town meeting, proposing a community fundraiser to save the garage. Renee organized flyers. My students painted a mural celebrating Millbrook's history for the fundraiser event. Even my mother showed up, quietly helping set up tables. A small but enormous gesture. The town hall filled with people I hadn't expected. Former students, neighbors, even Diane from school. Diane approached me awkwardly. I'm sorry for how I acted. I was scared. Not disgusted. I'm still learning. I accepted the apology, understanding that growth in a small town moved slower than in cities. By the end of the night, the fundraiser had raised more than half of what was needed. A local bank, moved by the turnout, offered Jordan a low-interest loan for the remaining amount. You saved it, I told her, watching relief finally soften the tension she'd carried for weeks. We saved it, she corrected, taking my hand in front of everyone without hesitation this time. A murmur rippled through the crowd, but no one looked away. No one whispered cruelly. It wasn't full acceptance, but it was the beginning of something Millbrook had never seen before. That night, walking through the orchard together, Jordan stopped beneath the oldest tree, suddenly serious. There's something I never told you, she said. The night I picked you up wasn't random. My stomach tightened. What do you mean? She took a breath before continuing carefully. Your mother used to know mine. They grew up together. Before your dad forbade the friendship. My mother mentioned my truck once. Years ago. Joked I looked like the Reyes girl who saved her once. That night on Route 9. I recognized your name from your mailbox before I even saw your face. I stared at her. Stunned. You knew who I was. And you stopped anyway. I stopped because you needed help, she said. The rest was just something the universe arranged. The revelation didn't feel like a betrayal. It felt like proof that we'd been written toward each other. Does my mother know? I asked. Jordan shook her head. I wasn't sure it was my story to tell. The following week, I brought Jordan to Sunday dinner. Hands cold despite the warm kitchen air. My mother opened the door, looked at Jordan's face, and went suddenly, completely still. Reyes, she whispered. You have your mother's eyes. I haven't seen that in 20 years. The three of us sat at the table longer than any dinner I could remember. Stories spilling out. My mother cried. Not from grief this time, but from a door finally reopening after decades shut. I should have fought harder for Carol, she said. I won't make that mistake again with you. Spring arrived slowly. The orchard blooming white and full for the first time in years. The garage reopened under a new sign. Reyes and Whitfield Community Garage, painted by my students. Jordan proposed on the same fallen tree where we'd first admitted the truth to each other. Marry me, she said simply. In the place that already knows everything about us. I said yes before she finished the sentence, laughing through tears in the orchard light. We married that autumn under the same trees. My mother in the front row, smiling. Renee stood beside me. Diane brought a cake. Even the developer sent, oddly, a card. I stopped hiding pieces of myself the day a stranger stopped her car for me. That single act of kindness on an empty road became the beginning of my whole life. Vandy.